Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our worship service here. My name is Elisabeth Jas. I am a worship associate here at First Parish, and I'd like to begin our announcements today to say that we are going to be connecting together, both online and here, in our joys and sorrows. If you would like to have Anne say your joy and sorrow, which we'll be doing from the pulpit this morning, please text it to the phone number that you see in your order of service. And also we have it online, of course, in the chat. We do have a few other announcements this morning. I want to remind you, as I always do, we have an excellent weekly update that comes through your email. If you're not connected to that, I encourage you to do so. It has a lot of information about the programming here, but also the programming beyond our walls in our wider circle. One thing that was not in the recent announcements is we do still have Ferry Beach happening on Memorial Day weekend. Those of you who have been know that the Concord Church and the Lexington Church have been doing that for at least 50 years, coming together at Ferry Beach. It is not officially because of COVID planned by either congregation, but you can call the Ferry Beach office, make a reservation, and have an enjoyable, relaxing weekend with your family. Second, I want to mention that we have a wonderful workshop happening after the service today. It is on covenanting. We are going to do it directly after the service. Online, it'll be really right after the service, but here in the sanctuary we're going to have a few minutes where people can greet Anne, but then we're going to be beginning probably within 10 minutes. We're going to start the workshop so that we can respect everybody's time. It was done as a response, this workshop, to the people who came to our other 8th principle workshops and wanted a little bit more information about covenanting. So we were going to discuss how covenanting within our congregation helps us build a beloved community. So on that note, I want to take a pause for a moment. In addition to being a worship associate, I'm also on the finance committee. So I have the pleasure today of leading both a workshop on covenanting and also finalizing the budget for next year. So it is my pleasure because there is no better tangible way of living my commitment to this church by sharing with all of you the financial commitment of funding this wonderful, thriving, hybrid, active, committed community. And I want to celebrate with those of you who have been waiting for exactly the right time to send in your final pledge. I'm here to tell you it's today. If you have not sent in your pledge, please do so today. And if you are new to pledging, I would like you to know that this is not just writing a check today. This is about thinking about the kind of contributions you can make over the course of the year and giving us an estimate, basically a number on how much you think that's all going to add up to. Stewardship@fplex.org is an excellent email. We are finalizing our proposed budget today, so please send in your pledge if you haven't done so already. And now, we will continue with the service.
Hello?
Can I speak with Mia?
Today's Monday. She's off. How may I help you?
Do you know who sends the order of service for worship?
That would be Reverend Ann.
Okay, how about the master script?
That would be Reverend Ann. Boy, she does a lot around here, come to think of it. Maybe she should get a raise.
Yes, that's true. I miss her leadership. She is such a profound and deep thinker. So glad she's going to be back soon. When is that exactly now?
110 days, Rev. Hello?
Hey, Pratik. It's me again. Do you know where Anne is?
Hi, Rev. She's on sabbatical, and I miss her, especially when I'm creating designs for the slides. We used to work on it together.
I miss her too, especially when planning music. Her spiritual guidance helped me to pick the pieces.
89 more days before she returns. Hello.
Oh, hi, Pratik. Sorry, it's me again. Can I speak with Mia?
She is in a start meeting, which is the staffing resource team.
Wow.
I am barely sailing through between admin, communications, RE, and Kashmir. I don't have time for lunch.
I feel you, Pratik. Anne's so good at juggling multiple things. She's always looking at the big picture of the church. She has such a wide understanding of all of the moving parts. It will be good to have her leadership and guidance back.
Couldn't agree more. I don't know how she does it. Always focused on the solution, no matter what. I miss my supervisory meetings where she would help me prioritize my tasks. And our staff lunches at the Memorial Garden when the weather's nice.
When does she return again?
51 days.
Hello? Hi, Rick. I received a call from a community member who is seeking assistance. Do you know who takes care of that?
That would also be Anne. She connects so beautifully with those who are suffering and struggling.
I see. When does she return again?
23 days!
Hey, Mia. How's my hair?
Fine, I guess. Why?
So Reverend Anne and I have this thing called hair check. Rip does the mic check, we do hair check. You know, when we are creating worship teasers and Christmas Eve videos, we would often joke, how's my hair? And then the reply would be gorgeous.
I gotta go make coffee.
Again?
Yeah, nobody signed up. Oh.
You know who is great at recruiting volunteers? This person could save the flying tents in under 30 minutes that included ordering and picking up lunch from a local deli for the volunteers. Did I mention this person was out there in the storm without gloves, helping undo the structure and fold the tents?
Let me guess. Anne.
When does she return again?
0 days. She's here today. Here's your task list for what's coming up in the next Please take this.
Reverend Anne, the children have a surprise for you.
Well, that was a wonderfully unexpected skit. Thank you. I'm not sure about the task list, but thank you so much. And thank you, children, for that beautiful banner. I love it. It just makes me so excited. Did you know that 6 years ago today, you voted to call me as your minister? Yeah, 6 years ago today, we had that wonderful vote. And it was a wonderful day and a life-changing one for me. And so it seems fitting to return on this day, having completed my promised sabbatical. Your gift of this time away has been more important to me than I ever thought possible. And so with a spirit of gratitude, I want to first offer my thanks and appreciation for the ministry of Reverend Kathleen Hepler, who so ably served as the sabbatical minister in my absence. She was respectful of my time away, and she only called me when she absolutely had to. And my trust in her allowed me to relax and invest in all that I undertook over these past 4 months. And I'm also grateful for the incredible work of the leaders of this congregation. When I left, there were so many decisions to be made about staffing changes, which needed to be thoroughly explored and discussed. So thank you, START team, for doing this. And thank you to the DRE search team. You have found an amazing new Director of Lifespan Faith Development named Robbie Rose, and she will be beginning this summer. That is just such a joyful thing. Thank you to all the volunteers helping with the capital campaign, the building renovation scaffolding, which Pratik laughingly refers to as our jungle gym. So I'm amazed that it was even able to squeeze in there between the chandeliers. Thank you for all of you who are working on the stewardship campaign. And I look forward to hearing all about this as I settle back into work this week. I wanted to also especially thank Rip and Pratik and Mia for their incredible work, holding this church together, doing everything that needed to be done. Thank you. You're wonderful. It has been quite a year, hasn't it? But remembering all that we have done and that the world needs people who are coming alive. That's what we are here, to come alive. And so I invite you to listen to our children's choir with Zach Sevier on drums, Michael Bruce on guitar, and Will Loesch on electric bass. And last time I saw you, you were up in the booth doing other things. So we have a multi-talented group of staff and volunteers. And Jamie's conducting. Wonderful. As our children sing Come Alive by Ben Prasek and Justin Paul.
Stumble through your day, got your head hung low, your sky's a shade of gray. Look at zombie in a maze, you're asleep inside, but you can shake away. Just a sad rocket, thinking that's your only option.
For our chalice lighting this morning, I read you a poem called Praying by Mary Oliver. It doesn't have to be the blue iris. It could be the weeds in a vacant lot or a few small stones. Just pay attention. Then patch a few words together and don't try to make them elaborate. This isn't a contest, but the doorway into thanks and a silence in which another voice may speak. And now please rise in body and spirit, and we will say our unison affirmation. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine.
As we begin our Time for All Ages, I'd like to invite Pratik to come and offer a blessing for the work that the children are doing today.
So most of you know that the children are doing a faith in action and making care packages for the homeless. I spoke with Bristol Lodge in Waltham, and they do have a shelter for men and women, and they are going to accept our donations, and they were actually very thrilled. So I invite you in a moment to bless all women, men, boys, girls, non-binary, gender-neutral, and trans folks who are homeless this day, for sleeping under bridges, on park benches, in doorways or bus stations, for those who can find shelter for the night but must wander during the daytime, for families broken because they could not afford to pay the rent, for those who have no relatives or friends who can take them in, for those who have no place to keep their possessions that remind them who they are, for those who are afraid and hopeless, for those who have been let down by our social safety net. For all these people, we pray that resources come to them to provide shelter, security, and hope. We know there is great abundance in the world, a great abundance of love, of people caring, building homes for those in need, feeding folks who are hungry, comforting folks who are frightened, inviting folks who are lonely into company, creating peace and safety zones, healing, and being with the sick and welcoming the weary to a place of rest. We are the people of abundance, people who have known love and offer our love as a blessing to our world.
And in this spirit, we bless these beautiful programs which will go with each gift package. Thank you. I would like to invite, for our Time for All Ages, I'm going to come down on the floor in just a moment, but I would like to invite any of you who consider yourself a yogi or a yogini, or the general neutral term, which is my favorite, which is yogin. And I'll meet you down here, and we can take our shoes off. So if you want to come forward and do a little bit of yoga with me, I would really love that.
I'm down.
And I'm taking off my shoes, because you can't do an asana with your shoes on. So those of you that, I'm hoping all the kids will come forward, because there's lots of room. And they're just stand-in postures, so you don't have to worry about twisting yourself into a pretzel or anything. Wonderful. Good, good, good. Can you hear me? This is good. Okay. Wonderful. So what we'd like to do is I'm going to teach you two poses and tell you a little bit about them. The first one, if you could take your shoes off, that would be great, because you want to be able to feel the floor. And those of you at home, If you would stand, as you're able, and participate, and those of you that are really wanting to do this but don't want to come up front, you could stand in your pews as well. It's okay. It'll be fun. So first we're going to teach you a pose called Tadasana, which is mountain pose. And to do that, you simply stand on your 2 feet and just about a hip width apart. And I want you just to rock back and forth just a little bit so that you can find your weight, because you want your weight to be in the center of your body. So just rock back on your heels and lean forward on your toes just a little bit until you find the center of gravity. Beautiful. And then the hands just come a little bit in front of you. And I want you to feel like you're rooted. Because if you picture the Himalayas, there are huge mountains that are wide at the bottom and very tall and sacred. And so I want you to take a breath as though you are the mountain, breathing almost through your feet up into your body. Let's do a breath like that together. And let that out. Just feel rooted to the ground. Take another deep breath. And blow that out. Now I want to teach you something called Ujjayi breath. And some of you are yoga teachers. I'm looking at Brenda Prusek. So Ujjayi breath is where you make a sound almost like the ocean in your breathing. And you just take your throat and you just close it just a little bit so that as you breathe in, and as you breathe out, and then you just, each time you breathe, you could hear the breath in your body. So let's breathe in. And out. And in. And out. So much of yoga is about the breathing and feeling that air, that prana, the source of life, moving through you as you're breathing. So now I'm going to teach you a pose called Vrikshasana, and it's also known as tree pose. If I didn't have a dress on, I would put my foot way up here, but because I'm wearing a dress in honor of my first day back, I'm going to put my foot just on my calf. So take one of your feet and put it either wherever it's comfortable on your calf, and you want to stay balanced. Now those of you that are in the pews, you can hold on to the pews a little bit if you need to, but those of us that are standing up here, you want to actually, before you get twisted in a pretzel, you want to actually find your drishti, which is a spot in front of you to focus on. It can be another person, it can be the floor, it can be anything simple, but find your center to look at. And then as you're finding that spot, gently lift up one of your feet and balance. And so you can bring your hands out to the side if you want to, or you can bring your hands into heart center. Or if you're feeling really strong and centered, you can bring your hands up overhead. And you can wave your hands in the breeze like there are leaves in a tree just blowing. You guys are totally awesome. Now don't forget to take a breath while you're doing this. Ujjayi breath. Beautiful. This is wonderful. So now we're going to put that foot down and we're going to try it on the other side. Start in Tadasana. Get your breath. Find your drishti. Find your something to focus on so you don't feel like you're going wildly around the room. And take the other foot and just lift that up. And bring your hands wherever you want to bring them. And just stand for a moment and take a breath. And I will tell you there is a legend about this pose, which is from the Ramayana, which is an ancient Hindu text. And it's a story of Rama, Lord Rama, and his wife, Queen Sita. And Rama and Sita were exiled from their kingdom for 14 years. And during that time, Sita was abducted, and she found herself alone and abandoned. And it was a very frightening time for her. But because she was the daughter of the earth, she found herself surrounded by the trees. And And so as she stood in the forest, she breathed deeply. She did her pranayama, ujjayi breath, and the trees surrounded her and witnessed her grief, so she never felt alone. She felt the support of every tree that was with her in the room. And so as we do tree pose, we feel all the trees that are with us, that we are one with those trees, and they love us and support us and will hold us together. Thank you. Namaste. Thank you. And now I invite us all to sing as the children get our shoes back on. We'll sing about the world that could be if we could only imagine it. John Lennon's song, Imagine.
All the youth can now go follow Pratik. So the reading for this morning is by a Muslim mystic poet and philosopher, Muhyiddin ibn al-Arabi. He lived in 1165 to 1240. And it's about an awakening that the world today still needs. There was a time I would reject those who were not of my faith, but now my heart has grown capable of taking on all forms. It is a pasture for gazelles. It is an abbey for monks, a table for the Torah, Kaaba for the pilgrim. My religion is love. Whichever the route love's caravan shall take, that shall be part of my faith. And now it is time during our service where we deepen our commitment to each other by offering the financial gifts that acknowledge that we have a commitment to our community and the ministries that serve and sustain it. For those of you who are online, please aim your camera at the QR code, and it's on your screen. And all of you, please be as generous as you feel able.
I am you, army. That's what I said. I am you, army. Don't you see? I am you, army. That's what I said. I am you, army. Don't you see? I am you, army. That's what I said. I am you, army. Don't you see? I am you, army. That's what I said. I am you, army. Don't you see? I am you, army. That's what I said. I am you, army. That's what I said.
See through the confusion, it's not hard to do. It's just an illusion, it's me and you. See through the confusion, it's not hard to do. It's just an illusion, it's me and you. See through the confusion, it's not hard to do. It's just an illusion, it's me and you. See through the confusion, it's not hard to do. It's just an illusion, it's me and you. I am a part of you, you are a part of me, and so together we are one body. I am inside your head, you are inside my heart. We fit together, perfect from the start.
I am you, army. That's what I said. I am you, army. Don't you see?
I am you, army. That's why I said I am you, army. It's not hard to do. It's just an illusion. It's me and you. See through the confusion. It's not hard to do. It's just an illusion. It's me and you. See through the confusion. It's not hard to do. It's just an illusion. It's me and you. I am a part of you. You are a part of me. And so together we are one body. I am inside your head. You are inside my heart. We fit together, perfect from the start. I am a part of you. You are a part of me. And so together we are one body. I am inside your head. You are inside my heart. We fit together, perfect from the start. I am a part of you. You are a part of me. And so together we are one body. I am inside your head. You are inside my heart. We fit together, perfect from the start.
Thank you, choir. It does me such good to hear you and be with you in your presence. That was just exciting and wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. My religion is love. Love's caravan will take us to some unexplored places. It will travel through the sacred geometry of the world, into the cultural realms of the many ways people encounter the holy. It may lead us through turbulent encounters as we bump up against each other, as we make mistakes and call each other into covenant again and again. My religion is love, and it has carried me gently through the past 4 months that I've been away. I will tell you, it took me a few weeks into my sabbatical to realize just how exhausted I had become. I am the type of person who rises to the occasion, who can usually muscle through a state of difficulty, who keeps her optimism and positive outlook in the midst of most things. You probably noticed that about me over these years. But friends, really, these past few years have been tough on all of us. The pandemic deconstructed most of our traditions and tested our relationships. And things are still so difficult in the world around us. Democracy is threatened everywhere. The planet is suffering. The economy is shaken, and violence in Ukraine is unbearably horrible. It is an incredibly difficult period in our collective experience as human beings on this planet. So I will tell you that probably the most liberating thing for me, being away this winter, was that I was not required to do theological reflection for all of you in reaction to each assault on our senses, our intelligence, our morals, and our planet. I know that I'm not able to affect all of these things as they happen, but I do try to take stock regularly with as many thinkers and offer my perspective as I read and encounter the world and share my thoughts. It is part of my ministerial work to respond to what the world gives us and asks us all to find a faithful response. And some months it's just difficult, as you know. I will tell you that many of my colleagues are leaving the ministry. They are just too tired and too worried to carry this work forward. And in the past few months, every time that I read of another colleague who was retiring early or going into another vocation, I was grateful once again for the chance that you have given me to have 4 months of real rest. It was a gift that I didn't realize would be so necessary and so healing for me. Because I have a habit of ignoring my body in the midst of challenging times, this leads me to some bad habits. I suspect I'm not the only person in this room who goes through that. So this sabbatical was all about connecting my mind and my body and my spirit. And I was the usual eager beaver to get going, to my own downfall. Yep, I started out with a whimper, not a bang. Right after Christmas, once our children had left the holiday gathering, I was really excited to jump into preparing for my yoga teacher training. After all, I've had a little bit of yoga over the years, and I was excited to get started exercising in earnest. I was imagining this healthy new body, strong and flexible. So I thought to myself, let's start with the hot power yoga class at the new yoga studio at my gym. How bad can it be? It was bad. Not only was I not in shape enough to handle the class, but the temperature hit about 95 degrees during that first hour. So 3/4 of the way through, I thought I was doing okay, having fun, learning the postures, and then I got dizzy, and then I got nauseous, and worst of all, my old back injury kicked in. I've had that injury throughout my life, and it's sidelined me many times. So I left the class early, limping out into the lobby, sweating, sick to my stomach, and I found that I could not walk. The gym had to call my spouse to come and pick me up, And I spent the next few days immobile, humbled, and quite repentant. For I had planned to spend all of January preparing for the yoga teacher certification program I was planning to do in February. And now I realized just how difficult this was going to be. Letting go of the ego. Tough to do when you have a can-do attitude most of the time. And I learned about ahimsa, nonviolence, which in my case meant being nonviolent to myself and my body. So as I recovered, I sat and I read Donna Farhi's book, Yoga, Mind, Body, and Spirit, cover to cover, as well as the anatomy textbook that I was required to read before my training. After all, I had time to sit and read for the first time in quite a while. And as I began to actually absorb her writing, I allowed the teachings to sink in. She introduced me to the 8-limbed path of Patanjali, the many forms of yoga which are just as important as the physical postures. Like many people, my only encounter with yoga was through the asanas, the postures, which is a good place to begin, but there is so much more. I read about meditation, about breathing, about ethics. Farhi writes that yoga is a technology for arriving in the present moment. It is a means of waking up from our spiritual amnesia so that we can remember all that we already know. It is a way of remembering our true nature, she says, which is essentially joyful and peaceful. Well, that sounded pretty good to me. I gently continued reading, and I soon learned that my goals were not quite well-founded. I had thought yoga would be a way for me to get in good physical shape. But Farhi teaches that yoga is not about self-improvement or making ourselves better. It is a process of deconstructing all the barriers that we may have erected that prevent us from having an authentic connection with ourselves and with the world. And so through January, I began to practice the sun salutation as my back healed, slowly, deliberately, breathing through each moment. I noticed how weak my arms were, and I worked on that. I began to enjoy the practice for its own sake, not just for the accomplishments of learning one asana or another. I began to pay attention to my breath as I was moving. I will admit that I was crazy excited to be able to do the half-moon balancing posture by the last week of preparation. But I tried to keep my ego out of it, and I just recognized progress as it happened. Well, when I arrived at Yandara, I stood out in at least two ways. I was the least experienced yoga practitioner, and I was the oldest. About the history of postural yoga and how it evolved internationally, who the teachers have been over the years, and what the different schools are teaching. We studied meditation, we explored the chakras, and I got my Reiki Level 1 certification. And I even learned about goat yoga. It's a thing. We had a 24-hour vision quest as well. We slept on the beach and spent the next day in silence. And here's my photo of the sun coming up over the mountain where I meditated for hours. Now, some of you are much more practiced meditators than I am. I will admit that what I appreciated most about that experience of quiet was being able to sit and truly pay attention to the wonderment of the world around me, the ocean, the shifting colors of the light on each wave, the gray whales spouting in the distance because it was breeding season for the gray whales. We saw them every day. The desert flowers blooming after the spring rains. Being quiet enough to observe the way of nature opened my whole being to the spiritual path. I realized that the physical forms of yoga are not the goal. We must allow life to move through us and surrender our hearts to spiritual practice. We had many experiences at Yandara to help us be heart-centered, to live and to teach from the heart, and to experience the inner light, and I loved this focus. And I even loved my teacher's spontaneous joke. How many yogis does it take to change a light bulb? None. The light is always on. Here is a picture of our whole class sitting on the beach listening to our teacher Craig, who is the founder of Yandara. Yours truly is sitting at the top of that picture, finally comfortable with sitting with crossed legs for hours. Like I told you, that was one of the things that was hardest for me to learn. Along with class instruction, we had time to experience satya, which is truth-telling in a circle. It was a powerful time of opening for everyone, including me. I so appreciated everybody's vulnerability and willingness to share from their deep, authentic selves. There were floods of tears over painful memories shared, and I just appreciated being a member of the circle, part of the group which was taking care of each other. I was not the leader. I could simply participate like everyone else. It was a great change of pace from my role as a religious professional, where I am called to lead in just about every sacred gathering that I'm a part of. It is eye-opening to experience once again the power of religious community from the perspective of the participants, because what we were doing the whole month was creating sacred community. For many of these folks, it was their first opportunity to be part of a sacred circle of trust. And as I witnessed their sense of release, their feelings of being held and supported by the group, their increased sense of safety, which led to deeper openings of their hearts, I found myself recommitted to the life-saving work of helping to build religious community in our Unitarian Universalist heritage. I will tell you that I was a tireless evangelist for our faith tradition, and I hope that I helped a few of these good students to understand who we are, but only when they asked me, of course. One of the personal challenging moments I had happened during our Satya group. At the close of one of our heart-centered emotional sessions, we were asked to think silently of one affirmation that we wanted to share with the whole group. And what came to mind for me after hearing people's struggles and suffering was that you are all so beautiful. I was seeing these 20-year-olds trying to find their way, wrestling with issues of emotional safety, lingering doubts from the legacy of their parents, struggles with their sense of self-worth. I experienced them all as such beautiful, strong, and yet fragile people. And I was filled with love and admiration for them. And I breathed to myself, you are all so beautiful. Do you realize how beautiful you are inside and out? Well, then our leader said something I wasn't expecting. She said, now direct that same phrase to yourself. Oh, I was stymied. I could not say those words to myself because I was struggling with such a sense of body shame and frustration, partly from being the oldest person, partly from the excess weight I'd been carrying, partly from my own lifelong sense of self-doubt and self-judgment. I just couldn't say it to myself. So the next time we were all in our group, we were asked to share something that we struggled with. And I admitted to them all that I was struggling with this sense of body shame and was so grateful that there were no mirrors in the yoga studio, so I didn't have to deal with it all day long. And their responses were so loving and affirming. They said things like, "I had no idea, Anne, that you struggle with this too." "I have the same problem," they said. "Thank you for sharing your vulnerability," they said. "We admire your strength and love as you share your life story." And I realize that in being safe enough to be vulnerable, relationships are built and strengthened, and the healing can begin. I wanted to keep this sense of safety and vulnerability in any sacred community in which I'm a part, especially here at First Parish. Since I've been back, I've been working on my private yoga practice and trying to incorporate the lessons I learned while going deeper in my studies. Oh, and that hot power yoga class, I'm taking it every week and I'm loving it. Just saying. The last story I want to share with you is about our final teaching experience. We had the opportunity to teach 90-minute yoga classes to individuals, but for our final teaching experience, we designed and taught a class with 6 teachers working together to teach one class. And I was assigned that very last moment of the yoga class, the Shavasana, corpse pose, which they say is the hardest pose, but really you're just lying on the floor. Now, in a public class, we usually simply lie on the floor and rest for a few minutes before we have to get up and go. But at Yandara, Shavasana is an invitation to deep meditation, allowing your whole self to fully feel the effects of the mind, body, and spirit connection. I had some of my most spiritual experiences during those moments of Shavasana during class. So I spent a lot of time preparing for this. We chose the theme of the setting sun for the class, and I remembered a line from my favorite Wendell Berry poem when he mentions the day-blind stars waiting with their light. And so I led the class into their time to find inner freedom with the words of Wendell Berry, "The peace of wild things." And as I recited this to the class, I was overwhelmed with tears as all the parts of me came into focus. And I felt whole as a newly minted yogin, as a minister, as a lover of poetry, as a compassionate soul seeking freedom and inner happiness. And so I close my sermon today with the peace of wild things and invite you into the inner freedom which is always there for us all. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound, in fear of what my life or my children's lives might be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. And for a time, I rest in the grace of the world and am free. Amen, and blessed be. Our anthem this morning is The Music of Stillness by Elaine Hagenberg.
Music of Stillness, but you're not playing on this one.
Thank you, choir. Thank you, Rip. As we begin our time of joys and sorrows, I have one to share from Joanne Mulready-Schick, thinking about our son Michael's partner, Alice Feldman, in Poland, who is providing support to a disaster medical team in the Ukrainian refugee center. I also would like to lift up our love and support for our beloved Elisabeth Walsh, who continues to struggle with her illness. And I'd like to share the joy of Cammie and Tony, who had a grandson, Elliot, born to them on April 11th, to Claire and David, and I have seen the picture, and he is breathtakingly beautiful, as all children are. So we have that moment of joy and celebration as well. I invite you, as I share this prayer, just to sit into your chair and take a deep breath together in our collective air. Pay attention to the Spirit moving in your own body, as together we remember these people that we've lifted up and those in your own lives that you are concerned for. Spirit of life and love, be with us as we live with the worries which surround us. We send our love and our light to all those who suffer, especially the people of Ukraine and all people who have been forced to leave their homes due to violence, climate change, or political upheaval. Be with them as they seek safety, and open our hearts to be people of generosity and peace. Help us to understand our own complicity in the troubles of this world, that we might change our own behavior so that we have a more positive impact on our environment and our society. There are many within our own community who are struggling. Help us to treat each other with understanding and renewed compassion. May we all feel the Spirit of life flowing through us as we surrender our hearts to our spiritual practice. Grateful for this community of faith, we lift our hearts together as we celebrate the chance to be together again. We give thanks for the beauty of this spring day and the leaves which are gently opening in the gentle spring sunshine. May our actions as a congregation help us all to build a new way of being in this world we treasure so deeply. Amen. And now, my friends, I invite you to sing from the rooted Tadasana position that you experienced early as you rise and find yourself rooted like a mountain. Take a deep breath. And I want you to sing, "We are building a new way," like you really believe it, because that is what we are called to do, is to build a new way together. May the touch of the sacred fill each and every one of you with love, with freedom, and with the joy that comes through the deep connections we cherish and by which we are held in this sacred circle of life. Please be seated for our postlude, which is King's Fold Trumpet by Alfred Fedak, played by Rip Jackson on our Hutchings organ.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us for worship today. That is the end of our service. Those who are online, our workshop on covenanting will begin momentarily, so hang in there. Those of us who are going to be doing the covenanting workshop here in the sanctuary, our 15 minutes of social hour have in fact already been used in our service today. And we have a number of people in our leadership team, including maybe some of you who have already covenanted with others to be home on time, say 1 o'clock. So I am actually going to start the workshop really within 5 minutes, enough time to make a rest stop, maybe get a glass of water, but this is so that we can all participate and make sure we meet our other commitments after the service. So I'll see you here in 5 minutes.